the top left, which is high impact, high in control, and maybe medium impact in control.
Right, high impact in control. High impact in control is my first priority. Okay, because this particular cause will definitely have a high impact on the problem that I'm focusing on. Okay, and it is in control also. Can someone tell me when would we use this into consideration, out of control? Because since I've listed it here, yeah.
Yeah, so when the cause is beyond the control, let's say something like an environmental factor or the government policies or something which is not within the control of the organization.
Yeah, yeah. So could be a guidelines, could be a regulation guidelines. So for example, if it's an insurance, it's an IRDA guideline. If it's a telecom, if it's a TRAI. Okay. So, but I got your answer. But what do you do in that case? Will we just eliminate it? Will we just stop it there? Because one thing is for sure, that working on this cause will have a high impact. That I know that. But it is out of my control. What should be my course of action? Because
there should be a certain, workaround.
Yeah.
Maybe certain way we can mitigate that, or we can have a different way of doing things so that we will not fall under that particular sort of regulations, something like that.
Yeah. So absolutely, your answer is right. If I am at this place wherein I identified certain out of control high impact, I would not leave any stone unturned. I would definitely go to every level to get that fixed. Okay. If it's within the organization and I believe that the senior management will not give an approval, let's say for working on this cause, it requires a lot of cost. So that's the reason after doing the brainstorming, everybody believes that let's put it under out of control right now, but we will not leave it. We will keep pushing it towards different channels in different forums to make sure it's implemented. So in a nutshell, you would not ignore it, but yes, you would try to work on it at a later stage. Okay, so that's what we always do. That. So control impact matrix is also something you can also use to prioritize your causes. The only thing here is that you would have a in control and out of control here. So just to recap, first you will do the brainstorming. You will, in the brainstorming itself, you will do the prioritization. You will do the in control, out control as well. And then you will ensure that you will be able to work on those as well. And simultaneously, you will prepare a fishbone as well. Okay, wherein you will be able to prioritize, you will be able to represent those causes under different headers. So this entire activity, what it has done is, it has prepared a sort of data for you, a kind of material for you to work upon. Because up till now, you didn't have any kind of a clue that what are the reasons or factors due to that I have this problem. But now you have a good laundry list of reasons which you'll be working upon. Okay, so I will categorize into process door and data door to make sure that I'll be able to work on it. Anybody has any question so far on what we've covered in the analyze phase?
Similar with just a one-off example, I would like to understand on part of the process door and the data door. For example, as you said, in data door, we will have data to work on with, and in the process door, maybe like an employee motivation, as you said, like it's a gut feeling. But say, for example, we do not have like a numeric data, but from an ESAT survey, we have employee comments on which some text analytics is done and an employee sentiment has come up with, and we can understand that the motivation is something that we need to look on. So that will be taken as a process door or as a data door.
If data can be extracted out of it, okay. If we currently not maintaining any sort of data, but yes, we believe that that data can be fetched. We can start maintaining that data. Probably then in that case, it can be a data door. But after doing all the permutation combinations, all the trials, and I could not find the data for that because we are not maintaining that sort of a data. Okay.
Yeah,
then in
it's
that case,
just a simple comments from the ESAT survey. So you don't have any questionnaire in the survey which asks about your motivation or anything. So it's the generics also in the ESAT survey. You will have a free flow dialog box right in the end or some place where you just write. So from those comments, some data analytics is done. Say for example, a text analytics is done, and it's figured out that the motivation of the employees is what needs to be improved, not from the gut feeling, but from just a common survey comments. So I just wanted to know that if that will be a process door or a data door, because we don't have like a data, but still we are coming up with some kind of analysis from some comments,
okay.
just to understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Let me answer this question while taking a scenario here. So let's say if we have identified 10 different causes and we have identified that 5 of them are the data doors. So I will probably start collecting the data for that. And we all know why are we collecting data? Because we want to do the data analysis. Okay. We want to use different tools. We want to use different techniques to get to the root cause. But if I don't have the data available, I cannot do any data analysis for sure. Absolutely, I have to
Yeah.
use some kind of I have to use some kind of a some kind of an expertise. I have to use certain tools like 5 why analysis, which we will talk about later. But I don't have any data analysis at that point in time. Now the example that you've taken, that during the customer satisfaction survey, if we are able to quantify that out of 100 people that we have, how many of them are demotivated, okay, then probably I can use that as a, not as a data door, because I don't have the data for the similar data that I'm doing analysis for. That is basically based on a different sort of a data. But yes, I can have some kind of a gut feeling that that would help me to resolve my problem, but that would still remain a process door. Data door
Okay.
would be only in that case when I'm able to map the data
Mm-hmm.
for that particular why which I'm working on. Okay.
Right. I also thought so that it should be process stored. I just wanted to understand that if I am correct in my understanding. That's
Absolutely,
thank
no
you.
issues, no issues. I think this training is for clearing our discussions and doubts only, because I think we all know a lot of things here only. But yes, uh, in that particular case, it's a process,
Thank you.
not an issue. So we will move ahead now. So this is a data collection plan which needs to be prepared for the data door causes, because since I have categorized these causes and I might not have the data available with me, so I will prepare a typical data collection plan and mention the operational information, that how I want this data to be. Okay, so this is one example that I've taken, which would make you understand. So there is a why project which is on complaints that we are doing, and these are the data door causes that have been identified. Vintage of the employee, okay, complaint description, source of the complaint, different zones that we have, mis-selling types, field visit done yes or no, employee knowledge, tool usage. So now all of these were discussed in the brainstorming, but I don't have the data. So I have to prepare a data collection plan and ask the team to arrange this data so that we can start doing the analysis. Okay. So this is an activity that we have to do it for the data door high impact ones, because I'll be only focusing on the high impact. So we will not be doing the data collection for process door because I don't have the data available for that. So only for the data door causes, which is high in impact. So now, once we have identified, prioritized the causes, now we will get into another technique which is called the hypothesis. So you must have heard hypothesis lot many times, but I just want to start it from the scratch so that everybody is on the same page. What comes to your mind when we say hypothesis? What is your understanding?
Hypothesis is just let's say it is something to be tested. So we are saying that, let's say I mean, we are saying that there is a relationship between this X and this Y. So but we need a proof for that. So we will hypothesize whether it has a relationship or not, and we'll do a hypothesis testing on that.
What is the meaning of hypothesis?
So hypothesis is like a theory. So we have certain theory based on certain information we have, and we then check the proof. I mean,
Yeah.
we get the proof of that. So
Observation of data.
So scientifically, a theory is something, a hypothesis that has been proven. It becomes a theory.
So hypothesis is basically an assumption that I have made, and I will be able to conclude it once I have the fact and figures. Once I'll be able to prove with the help of any raw data, any fact and figures, whether I'll be able to conclude that or not. So meaning of hypothesis is a kind of an assumption that I've made. That's what we keep on saying, that hypothetically situation, okay? I'm not sure about it. I'm just making an assumption. I'm just making a guess. It is just my gut feeling at the moment. So that's a hypothesis. So in Six Sigma, typically in the analyze phase, we do the hypothesis testing to make sure that whatever we are saying, whether it's good to go or not. Okay. So let's understand this in detail and what is the usage of this in the Six Sigma. Hypothesis testing is a testing which is help us to draw a conclusion about the population based on the sample, and this help us to test certain assumption which we have. Okay. So we have made some assumptions and now we're going to test it. So for example, if you remember, I took a medical analogy to explain you the Six Sigma DMAIC journey. Remember day one, first
Yeah.
thing that I talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we walk up to the doctor might say that, you know, I'm suffering from headache or whatever. Until unless tests are not being done, doctor never concludes. So therefore in Six Sigma analyze phase, we do a lot of tests to conclude whether this particular X has a significant impact on my life. So I'm using the word significant here. Up till now, we were just looking at the mathematical impact, okay? Whether this has a impact, looking at just the numbers. But now, since we are in the black belt training, we will be concluding the impact basis the hypothesis as well as the significance, okay? So let's understand hypothesis. This is very, very important. So I would request to pay attention to it, ask questions in between wherever you want. Hypotheses are of two types. Okay. The first hypothesis is called null hypothesis. It's just a name which is called a null hypothesis. This hypothesis says that X does not impact Y. So likewise, in this example that you can see here, attrition is my Y. Let's say one of the X is transport. People are saying one of the cause that we've got is that our company is not providing good transfer facility, or maybe there is no transfer facility. That's why the attrition is very, very high. Now, I don't know, unless and until I do the hypothesis testing, I will not be able to prove. So the null hypothesis would say that transport does not have any significant impact on my attrition. Okay. Another type of hypothesis is called alternate hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis say that my X has a significant impact on Y. So likewise, if I say salary, okay, once I do the hypothesis testing of salary versus attrition, and it comes out as an alternate hypothesis, then I would say that salary has a significant impact on my project Y, which is attrition. We will talk about how to calculate hypothesis in the next slide. However, we should be very, very confident on the significance of null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Null hypothesis would always say that X does not impact Y. And if the results comes out to be alternate hypothesis, we would say X impacts Y. So just a question, just a logical question. Since you are not asking me any question, I want to ask you a question. Which of these scenarios we would be taking an action? In case of a null hypothesis or an alternate hypothesis?
Alternate hypothesis.
Alternate.
Absolutely. Because null hypothesis say X does not impact Y. So I will ignore that cause. Okay, because my data says statistically that even though if you work on this, it might not yield good results. It might not be able to solve it. So therefore, I will reject the null hypothesis and work on the alternate hypothesis. So alternate hypothesis is always I would go for. Null is something which I would ignore. Okay. But now the question arises that how do I come to know? How do I come to know whether the test that I've done is a null hypothesis or an alternate hypothesis? I should know that. Okay. So to do that, we look at the probability value, which is called the p-value as well. A p-value is the probability value or the value of significance, which ranges from 0 to 1, okay, which decides whether I have a null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis, or in a different way, whether my x has an impact on y or not. So p-value is the value of significance which is taken after doing each and every test that we do, depending upon the data type, which we will discuss later. But p-value will tell me whether my x has an impact on y. But what p-value should I be looking at to conclude whether it has a significant impact or not? That we will talk about. If the p-value is lesser than 0.05, if the p-value is lesser than 0.05, I would call it as an alternate hypothesis, which means x has a significant impact on y. My p-value is equal to greater than 0.05, then I would say null hypothesis, which means x does not have a significant impact on y. Okay. So don't worry about how do we calculate p-value. It is being calculated automatically by Minitab when we do the combination of two tests, when we try to check the impact of x on the y. At the end of each and every test, it would calculate the p-value. And p-value is a deciding factor, which would tell me whether I have to work on this particular x or not. Okay. Is it clear to all of you?
Yeah.
So let me ask you questions. Let me ask you certain questions. So I have p-value here, 0.04, 0.07, 0.09, 0.05, and 0. Okay. So let's say null or alternate.
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 Second,
Null.
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 And alternate.
Alternate.
just remember, a lot of people get confused and say that 0.05 is alternate, but it is always lesser than 0.05. Okay. Now, nobody asked me this question. Nobody asked me this question that where this 0.05 comes from. Does anybody know? Does anybody want to give a guess?
Yeah, 95%, 0.05 is that it means that it has got less than 5% influence on y.
Confidence level.
Absolutely. So that's what is the standard that we usually take. And likewise, we did it in the sampling exercise that we consider 95% confidence level as a standard. Similarly, when we call anything statistically, it has to be 95% accurate. It could be a matter of 5% chance, but unless and until I'm 95% confident that whether my x has an impact on y, I would not conclude it as an alternate. if it's 94% confident, okay, so here it was 96% confident, here it was 93, 91, 95, it has to be 95% and above, 95, and here it is 100%. Okay. And these are my confidence levels. So from confidence level, this p-value has come. That's why it is called the probability value. It is also known as value of significance. Okay. So that's why this p-value of 95% is considered. Sometimes in a very critical sort of situation, they consider 99% confidence interval. In a very less scenario, in DFSS sort of projects, wherein they consider 0.01 p-value as significant. Okay. But just a good to know information that I've given you. But we will never ever be using, we will never ever be looking at that particular situation. We will always be looking at 0.05 and below. Below 0.05 to be considered as a alternate hypothesis. Now I want to talk about some of the error types that comes in the hypothesis testing. Okay. The name of those errors are alpha error and beta error. Okay. When do we call an alpha error? When null was true and we chose alternate. So for example, when we did the hypothesis testing, the p-value was, let's say, 0.06, which is a null hypothesis. And by mistake, I concluded that as an alternate. So that is called an alpha error. And what is beta error? Just the opposite of it. There was a significant impact. P-value was 0.01, example. And by mistake, I ignored it. So that is called a beta error. Okay. Can someone think of how can this scenario would come into place when I'll make these errors? Why would this error happen?
So when the data is not sufficient, or we use wrong methods, wrong tools, wrong statistical tools.
But I had already used the statistical tools, right? I already had the statistical tool which already gave me a hypothesis that this has a significant impact and this doesn't have a significant impact. But then why would I make these alpha or beta errors? Can someone think of, what do you think? I just want to know from you guys first and then I will make my thing. What do you think can lead to a alpha error or a beta error? The answer is very simple and logical, but people still make mistake in it. And that's why I want you to understand it and never make this kind of a mistake. What do you think can go wrong